Keyboard Warriors, brought to you by our great friends over at Barrel Theory Beer Company. And again, December is a big month filled with tons of home games. And plus, we got the holiday season coming up, and everyone wants to have the best beers possible if you're hosting this Christmas. And I know anyone that is going to be out at the X, we just sampled lately the Crowler of the Day, Section 105. Everyone needs to give that a try if you're into IPAs, as well as their offerings of raindrops throughout the X, Sections 112, 217, and Club Level 36. Joe, first one I've got this week. I'm really curious what your take is. Your colleague Michael Russo throws out when he reposted something about Jared Spurgeon being able to pass Mikko Koivu for most time on ice skated in franchise history back leading into the Utah game. He said, the one and only player in Minnesota Wild history that'll ever wear 46. What say you?
Wow. Yeah, it's it's not a franchise that's retired a ton of numbers, right? But I think, there are guys there are guys that you can see on this team that will, like Kirill, I think at this pace will be 97, will be retired. It's pretty safe to think that. I think Boldy, if he's on his climb and he plays a 7-year contract with the Minnesota Wild, he could be there. Spurgeon, not out of the question. I know he's not the flashiest guy in the world, but to come where he came from and play this long and this successful and be their captain, especially if they make some hay in the playoffs this year, the next couple of years, while he's Minnesota, like I wouldn't put it past that it happens. It just I know that there are teams that don't have a lot of sweaters retired, right? In Tampa Bay, it's right now it's Vinny Lecavalier and Ryan St. Louis, and deservedly so. And then eventually there'll be 5 more of those when the current core group of guys retires. But yeah, I think Spurgeon deserves the praise he's getting from where he came from to where he is now, and still for his size, a really very, very good defenseman in this league. So it would be interesting to hear the criteria from the brass and what it takes to be retired jersey. You can't just retire everybody, but he certainly would have a case for it.
Yeah, and for me, I know a lot of people love the player. I think there was definitely some dissension and debate among the fan base, though, on Mikko Koivu's jersey ending up in the rafters. And I think with his being there, that kind of set the standard and set the bar, right? Mm-hmm. And you look at him and Spurgeon, and it's hard to find major differences in, obviously they're different players, but you look at the longevity, the records they hold, the leadership, what they mean in the longevity. It feels very much like if Koivu got it, as long as Spurgeon plays out his years and does so gracefully, and I don't even think playoff success really matters because I don't know that Koivu ever really had it.
No,
I gotta think that he probably does get it retired, but I would love to hear from, I guess that really is just Leopold's decision, probably, right? Who actually gets their numbers up. So I'd be curious to understand what goes into that thought process, but end of the day, who am I to sit here and say whether a player does or doesn't deserve it? It's just weird when you mention guys like Marty St. Louis and Vinny Lecavalier. I see, Lemieux and Briere in Pittsburgh. It's just, it feels different because those franchises have been around longer, right? Mm-hmm. And for the Wild, I think the Koivu one was kind of needed for the fans because it just was so long with only having that depressing #1 jersey for Wild fans up there, which that one I will speak freely on. I think that's the dumbest gimmick ever. I wish that wasn't there. And I was actually really sad when I learned that Wallstedt was going to be number 30, because all through junior and playing in the World Junior Championship and stuff, like, he was wearing 1. So I'm like, oh, yes, he's going to make them make a decision. Are they going to take that banner down and let him wear it? But then he's like, oh, no, I'm 30 for Lundqvist. I'm like, God damn it. All right, there goes our one shot.
Yeah.
Oh, well. I'd never thought about the Spurgeon one much, but as soon as Russo said it, I'm like, huh, yeah, probably.
If you argue one or the other, and that sets the standard of what it'll be, then yeah, you certainly, like I said, has a case. And some franchises different, where it's like Murray, St. Louis, and Vinny Lecavalier, both won Stanley Cup in Tampa, and they had a lot of the records there for the team, and now they've been rewritten by current players. But when you have the Wild that are relatively newer and they don't have that playoff success, you have to base it on the longevity and impact on and off the ice for a team, and has to be a special category of a player. And I think Spurgeon will eventually, I certainly have that case, if they decide to do that.
For sure. Next one up, a little bit of back and forth with prospect writer Cam Robinson and one Colby Cohen. Cam says, hearing Michael Misa and Boston University have a framework in place for him to play there next season. It'll be interesting to see how NCAA teams handle finalizing and announcing commitments with regard to CHL seasons. Colby Cohen quotes that and says, this is false, 100% false, not 1 ounce of truth to it. Of course, BU would like to land Misa, but this tweet has 0 merit to it. Just carves him, and goes on his podcast to even expand on it and say he's hearing that Misa has a framework to end up in Minnesota. So the hot take with all of this is, like, is this the new world of college hockey? Like, are all of the top tier CHL guys going to be rumored going everywhere? Are we just going to sit here and bicker back and forth and have no idea what's going on? Like, how is the landscape even going to change with college hockey now that these barriers are open? Like, I wish it was open a little bit earlier so that we could just all dream about Riley Heidt playing for the Gophers. That would be just the best time ever. But what do you make of just all of the chaos here with CHL players being eligible after August 1st?
Yeah, it's going to be incredible. And like I don't like it to this because it's different, of course, but NIL money and football, you see guys that are like top quarterbacks of one team. All of a sudden, Ohio State will pay $4 million and this guy will come over and play. But it does take special a player to make that transition. And Misa, exceptional status guy, like he's exceptional status player. There are very few guys that can make that jump and do that, especially. But yeah, it could become silly season in these instances of guys now being eligible to make the move and be recruited. And I don't know how that's going to necessarily work. I'm bringing them in and whichever, and whether it's right or wrong to have them stay there versus go to college hockey. But yeah, that's anybody who lands him will be in a very, very good place, I think.
Yeah, I think people will be pretty happy to pull that one off. All right, last one here, and this one's got a little bit more to unpack, I guess. Elliotte Friedman on the newest version of 32 Thoughts, the podcast, proposed a trade between the Vancouver Canucks and the Buffalo Sabres. He proposes Elias Pettersson going to Buffalo in exchange for Bowen, Byram, and Dylan Cozens. It's a big one. There's obviously a lot of things to consider with both teams right now and how things are going to whether or not you'd pull the trigger. Which team says no?
I mean, I thought Pettersson was on the way to be a franchise player in Vancouver, right? I know that market is hot for hot takes and the ups and downs of where they can be. So I don't know.
Well, the biggest thing right now, Joe, and I think the reason that some of this came about, at least from the Vancouver side of things, sounds like Pettersson and JT Miller are not boys. Like they are not on the same page. Like Miller's a gamer and he wants to push everybody, and Pettersson is like not having it. So like push comes to shove, you got to choose between those two. Maybe it's a trade that happens, but I asked Isha, producer Isha, our resident BC native, and he said he would absolutely do this. He would love to see Byram and Cozens go to Vancouver for Pettersson, which actually surprised me. I thought he would combat it. So it's interesting. I mean, Buffalo's got their own
problems,
nightmare right now with God, that they were the entire news cycle today with the post about ownership saying they've got the answer in the room here. They believe that this is all going to get sorted out on its own. And the internet's undefeated. Like some of the comments were absurd, but hilarious. And some were pretty accurate.
Yeah. I mean, they are way much more of a problem than the Vancouver Canucks are. But you could argue both teams could use a big jolt in their system, which certainly would be that. But I know the biggest talking points for Kevin Adams talking about how this is not a destination spot in Buffalo and
no palm trees.
No palm trees. Sorry,
and taxes.
When they made the point about Josh Allen, well, didn't they have their own Josh Allen and Jack Eichel? Before, who's now having an incredible season.
Weird, doing great things.
But yeah, if you're Buffalo and you've had this long stretch of lack of playoff even appearances, I guess, but haven't they done this before? They've traded.
How many times have they done this before? So many.
Ryan O'Reilly, it's just, I don't know. I don't think their one trade makes this team where they need to go. But yeah, that's a definitely interesting proposition, especially when you have two teams that are kind of at a little bit of a crossroads here.
For sure. No, Buffalo is the greatest show we have. I need them to have like a season-long HBO series. It would be
great.
Different. Okay, well, again, thank you, Barrel Theory, for bringing us another week of hot takes that we were able to find throughout Twitter and other podcasts.